When classifying an RPG, I've always placed them in one of three categories: regular turn-based RPGs, action RPGs, and the topic of this video, tactical RPGs. To state the obvious, tactical RPGs are technically turn-based as well, however, they just play a lot different. Usually, they have some type of grid or similar system. While they definitely have had their presence over the years, I'd argue they've always been the least popular of these three. I mean, yeah, you've got your Final Fantasy Tactics, your Fire Emblems, your Shining Forces, your Ogre titles, but besides these, they've never really been that popular, at least outside of their niche demographic. With that said, they seem to be making a pretty decent comeback in recent years though, with especially a lot of love in the indie scene. However, we won't be talking about any of these here. Instead, we're going to focus on some lesser known titles that might have slipped through the cracks over the years. Outside of a couple exceptions, these really aren't going to be the most super obscure hidden games out there. Rather, they're just going to be some quality titles that maybe don't get brought up too much these days. So, without further ado, let's just get into it. Here's an unranked list of 8 great retro tactical RPGs you might not have heard of.
The light is your guide.
The dream is what keeps you going.
Now is the time to shape your story. Your fate is in your hands.
To start off this list, we have Vanguard Bandits. Vanguard Bandits was released for the PS1 in 1998 in Japan and 2000 in North America, and was developed by the company Human Entertainment. Human Entertainment was a pretty obscure and now-defunct developer. They were probably best known for the Fire Pro Wrestling series, which largely never left Japan, and the Clock Tower series, an early survival horror series which seems to be a bit of a cult classic these days. Oh yeah, how could we forget about the publisher, Working Designs? They always put so much love and care into their packaging, and this is no exception. I especially love the instruction manual. It's so cool. As far as the actual game goes, in terms of its quality compared to how unknown it is, this might be the biggest hidden gem on this list. I mean, you got a cool mecha setting, branching storyline paths, a simple and serviceable battle system, pretty good music, and yeah, it's just a good time. The story has you playing as young Bastion as he gets caught up in political struggles between warring nations. Pretty standard stuff for tactical RPGs. What's not typical though are the 3 storylines you can follow that have different battles and different endings. This gives the game a lot of replayability, and considering you can beat it in under 20 hours, it's perfect for that. Many tactical RPGs are long, arguably too long, so thankfully that is not the case here. When it comes to battles, it's like your standard tactical RPG fare, however, there is one thing I really like, or actually 2 things. 1. The little animation and dialogue you get when attacking enemies is a nice touch. And 2. Upon leveling up, you can choose what stats you want to increase. No more getting garbage stat games like in Fire Emblem. You can build your characters however you want. When you combine all this with a really cool mecha medieval fantasy setting, you have a quality gem here. Apparently, I'm not the only one that thinks so. For all you Gurren Lagann fans out there, does this design look familiar? Yeah, thought so. Out of all the things to take inspiration from, I can't believe Vanguard Bandits was one of them. Pretty cool stuff. Unfortunately, Vanguard Bandits only ever came out for the PS1. You can still buy it as a PS1 classic on the PS3 store though. Yes, the PS3 store, so who knows for how long. Overall, Vanguard Bandits is just a super charming game. It's worth checking out. The next game we have on our list is Arc the Lad, Twilight of the Spirits. Twilight of the Spirits was released for the PS2 and was developed by the company Cattle Call? Yeah, another pretty obscure developer that had a lot of titles under their belt, but none that were really that popular. We talked about the first 2 Arc the Lad games in our video about underappreciated RPGs, however, those ones were developed by G-Craft. Same with the third game, which we could have talked about here, but we're already covering a lot of PS1 games today, so Twilight of the Spirits it is. I gotta say, I really love this game. It's one of the most unique tactical RPGs I've ever played. Instead of a grid-based system, every character has their own range they can move in. Your actual attacks have their own range as well. This sort of gives combat a less restrictive feel while still feeling like a tactical RPG. It's super fun. The story is also a strong point. In Twilight of the Spirits, there are two protagonists, Karg and Dark. Yeah, really great names here, I know. It kinda makes it seem like you're playing as good and evil at first, but you'll later find out that things aren't so black and white. I found myself really intrigued as the plot kept going. Karg and Dark each have their own party members they can recruit, which helps give you a feel for both sides. I especially love all the diversity on Dark's side. Very rarely do you get to play as various monsters, so this is pretty cool. When you throw some awesome music in the mix along with actual explorable environments, which is not common in the genre, you have a really solid title here. Too bad I can't say the same about the sequels that pretty much killed the franchise. R.I.P. Ark the Lad. He was a good lad that never got to live long enough to see his redemption arc. Thankfully, Twilight of the Spirits can be bought on the PSN store, so it's very easy to play these days. I played it on my PS4 a few years ago and had a great time. If you want to have a great time yourself, I recommend checking this one out.
Venom Arrow! That's right! Here we go!
Coming up next, we have Shin Megami Tensei Devil Survivor. Yeah, I know what some of you guys are thinking. Shin Megami Tensei? Isn't that franchise like super popular? Well, the mainline series is, and certainly Persona is as well. However, besides these, a lot of the older titles aren't really that known outside of their community. Devil Survivor is a pretty good example. It was obviously developed by Atlus, primarily by members of the at the time recently acquired Careersoft, the team behind the Landgrisser and the Girl Lancer series. It was initially released for the Nintendo DS, however, there would later be an enhanced port for the 3DS with extra features. That's the version I played. The story follows similar beats of previous S&T games while still doing its own thing. You play as a high schooler in Tokyo, there's a demon outbreak, and you summon friendly demons to fight against the hostile ones. This time you summon them from a computer program though.
But why? Are we supposed to bring about world peace or something?
The main character also has the ability to see people's death clocks, which lets him know when they're going to die. Pretty interesting stuff. There's not only different choices you can make, but different endings that you can unlock as well. This gives the game a lot of replayability. That wouldn't matter if it wasn't fun though, right? Well, as you can guess by its inclusion on this list, it is. It's like your standard tactical RPG fare, but with the addition of SMT's famous press turn system. Each character unit also has 3 demons they can fight with, which just adds more elements of party management. I love this. Overall, Devil Survivor is just a quality game. If you're a fan of both Shin Megami Tensei and tactical RPGs, you have to check this one out. It's like a match made in heaven for you. If you want some more Atlus tactical RPG goodness, then, well, look no further than the sponsor of this video, Atlus's Persona 5 Tactica. Yes, Atlus finally went back to give tactical RPGs another spin, this time with everyone's favorite Phantom Thieves. It plays out a bit differently than the aforementioned Devil Survivor though. While there's no press turn system, there's a bigger focus on movement and using positioning to your advantage. Spells also have various effects that can move enemies in a multitude of ways. It's definitely different than your standard tactical RPG combat, and I think it's a really good time. Oh yeah, other characters besides Joker can also equip other personas as well. This is a nice touch as it gives a lot of options to party customization. Honestly, for those new to the genre, this is a great introduction, especially if you're already familiar with the Persona 5 characters. Persona 5 Tactica is out now for the Xbox Series X and S, the Xbox One, Windows PC, PS4, PS5, Nintendo Switch, and Steam. Phantom Thieves are waiting for you, so what are you waiting for? Thank you, Atlus, for sponsoring this video.
Yeah, let's show them what we got!
The next game we have on our list is Saiyuki Journey West. Saiyuki was released for the PS1 and was developed by the company Koei. I never knew how to pronounce that, I think that's right. This is another one that I'm kind of inclined to call a hidden gem. It's not a masterpiece or anything, but it's a very competent, well-made game that flew completely under the radar. I mean, it came out in North America in August 2001, just 4 months before Final Fantasy X released on the PS2. Yeah, enough said. It's a shame too, as it's a really cool game. As you can probably infer from the title, it's loosely based on the ancient Chinese novel, Journey to the West. You play as the Buddhist monk Sanzo, who can either be male or female, as you journey west from China to India. Along the way, a colorful cast of characters join you, like everyone's favorite Son Goku and many other characters from the novel. I really like the whole ancient Asian setting, as surprisingly, we don't really get a lot of these in the genre. If you also like this setting, you might want to check out our video about RPGs that take place in ancient Asia. Saiyuki rightfully has a spot there too. When it comes to battles, they don't reinvent the wheel or anything, but they are simple and fun. It's like tactical RPG comfort food. There are these cool wear changes though, where your party members turn into like monsters. Think Uzuru from Dragon Ball. Overall, Saiyuki Journey West is not an experience that's gonna blow you away or anything. It doesn't really do any one aspect extraordinarily well, however, the sum of its parts make it a fun little tactical RPG romp. You may not walk away with your mind blown, but at the least, you will walk away with the words Magic Son Goku stuck in it.
Magic Son Goku, Magic Son Goku, Magic Son Goku, Magic Son Goku.
To start off the second half of the list, we have Jeanne d'Arc. Jeanne d'Arc was developed by Level 5 and was released for the PSP. Yeah, I know Level 5 is quite popular, however Jeanne d'Arc is easily one of their most unknown and probably their most underrated game. It gets brought up in PSP circles, but not too much outside that. In these circles though, it's commonly stated to be one of the best tactical RPGs on the system, right alongside Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre. Yeah, it's that good. Okay, well maybe it's not quite as good, especially Final Fantasy Tactics, but hey, what is? It doesn't have the depth of either of those titles, and it's definitely the simplest and easiest, but that's not always a bad thing. If you're new to the genre and want something not quite as intimidating, this is a great stepping stone. Visually, the game is stunning with really vibrant, full 3D environments. Presentation-wise in general, the game is just excellent. The UI is sharp and there's some nice anime cutscenes. Story-wise, it's a fictional, supernatural retelling of the Joan of Arc story. It's a very well-told plot overall with strong writing.
Your wrist! It's glowing! Don't! Stay back, Leanne!
But your arm is... Look! You might be hurt! An armlet. What is it? And where did it appear from?
When it comes to battles, Jeanne d'Arc really shines here too. It's not necessarily groundbreaking combat, but it's executed very well with the cool transformation mechanic. There's also sort of a weapon triangle system, similar to the one found in Fire Emblem. Overall, it's just fun tactical RPG combat. If you're a big fan of tactical RPGs and haven't played this one yet, you gotta check this one out. It's one of the better experiences you'll find in the genre and maybe the best game on this list. It's not my personal favorite, as I do prefer Arc the Lad, Vanguard Bandits, and maybe Saiyuki, but personal preferences aside, I can say it is the most polished. It's beloved for good reason and gets a very strong recommendation. It's an absolute shame it's never been released anywhere else besides the PSP. It would have been perfect for a Switch port. If Level 5 can give us an Ni no Kuni Switch port, come on, where's the love for Jeanne d'Arc?
And then release it.
Coming up next, we have a bit of a special entry here as we're featuring two games, Phantom Brave and Soul Nomad and the World Eaters. Why am I featuring both? Well, I'll explain in a bit. They both were developed by Nippon Ichi and were released for the PS2. Phantom Brave also got ports of the Wii and the PSP. Most people know Nippon for the Disgaea games, however, they used to make a lot of other tactical RPGs back in the day. Many of them played very differently too, these two being a good example. Phantom Brave does not have a grid-based system and gives you more of a range to move in like Twilight of the Spirits. You can also interact with your environments a lot. It's interesting. Like pretty much every object in the game can be picked up and used as a weapon, complete with their own stats and skills. If that wasn't enough, you can throw enemies off the battlefield as well, and they can do the same to you. You also summon these phantoms in battle to fight for you, and it's a pretty unique system. The story is also fairly unique compared to most other Nippon Ichi titles as well. While there is some humor, it's played a lot more seriously for one. Basically, you play as this 13-year-old orphan girl whose parents died and who can talk to ghosts and shit. Or phantoms, I guess. People think she's possessed and is the source of every problem, so she's treated like shit by everyone.
Morona? Morona, the possessed one? Stay away! Help! Somebody help me!
This leads to some pretty sad and depressing scenes. It does get happier later though. Also, I really love the tropical environments in this game. It's got a really cozy feel. Soul Nomad on the other hand though, while it is also darker than most other NIS titles, it still has a good amount of humor thrown in, primarily from Gig, the Master of Death. He fuses with the soul of your protagonist, who can either be male or female, as you then take on the World Eaters. He can corrupt you though, turning you down a path of evil. This creates a new story branch in the game that has its own scenes and endings. With that said, the gameplay might be the most unique thing about this game. There are grids to move on, however, combat has your squad of units battling another squad of units. It's kinda like Ogre Battle in this sense actually. There are a lot of other really complex mechanics, but it would take too long to explain them all here. Some of you guys are probably thinking, besides the tone, these games sound very different, why are you including them both? Well, there is a bundle of them called the NIS Classics Volume 1, and it's a great way to check them both out. It's on the Switch and PC. These games certainly aren't for everyone, you kinda know just by looking at it if you're gonna vibe with the style or not, but for those that do, there are some really unique experiences to be had here.
Such power!
The next game we have on our list is Kartia, The Word of Fate. Kartia is another Atlas game that came out for the PS1. For all you old school Final Fantasy fans, you'll probably instantly recognize the art. Yoshitaka Amano has a very distinct style and it's on full display here. It's not just all style and no substance though. Kartia does have some interesting mechanics. There's this card fusion system, you can summon phantoms, kinda similar to Phantom Brave actually. There's sort of a take on a weapons triangle mechanic and every character has 100 HP. There's also unique height advantages to specific weapon types. However, by far the coolest mechanic is the transformable terrain. Certain magic spells can alter the environment and it's really neat. A lot of people love to praise the Divinity Original Sin games for this mechanic and okay, I'm not gonna act like Kartia is as good or is as deep as those games, but still, credit given where it's due. Kartia did it first. I don't know if it's the first tactical RPG ever to do this, but it's the earliest one I know at least. When it comes to the story, you can play as one of two scenarios, Toxas or Lacrimas. Both characters are members of a group called the Vigilance, where Toxa serves as a young knight and Lacrima a shrine warrior. They intertwine at various segments and it's pretty interesting. To fully grasp the story, you're going to want to play both, as they each have their own characters and endings. Overall, Kartia is a solid little title. If I'm being completely honest, out of all the PS1 games on this list, it is my least favorite, but I can still recommend it. If it looks interesting to you, it's worth checking out. And to finish off this list, we have the most obscure game by far, Energy Breaker. You gotta be a real RPG nerd to know this one. For one, it only came out in Japan. Luckily it does have a fan translation though, so it can be experienced in its full glory. Apparently it took over 10 years to translate, so hats off to everyone involved. I thought about including either Bahamut Lagoon or Treasure Hunter G as a Super Famicom Japan exclusive here, but given that those were made by Squaresoft, they're kind of well known. Well, as well known as Japanese exclusives can be at least. We did talk about Bahamut Lagoon in our video about RPGs that never left Japan though. Check that one out if interested. Anyway, Energy Breaker was developed by Neverland, the same team behind the Lufia series and the Rune Factory series. Yes, the same people that made the absolute classic that is Lufia 2 also made another Super Nintendo RPG that very few people know about. Let me tell you, it is very different though. It combines the exploration of towns and dungeons from more traditional RPGs with tactical RPG combat. Pretty similar to Arc the Lad from earlier in this video and the Shining Force series. What makes Energy Breaker different in this aspect though, is you can change your tone when talking to NPCs. This doesn't really change anything, but it's some nice flavor. There's also a cool isometric view as well, which kinda gives it Super Mario RPG vibes. On the topic of atmosphere though, the music in this game is godly. It's so good and rivals some of Squaresoft's best. It's a very deep and diverse OST with many standout tracks. Even if you don't play the game, at least listen to the OST, you won't be disappointed. I gotta give a shout out to the character art as well. It was made by the same guy who did the art for the Trigun manga, so it's got that really stylized 90s anime look. Trigun is an all-time favorite of mine, so I love this. The tactical RPG combat may look a little basic on the surface, but it's got some unique mechanics. There are these balance points you use per turn, and there's also light and dark side of elements which factors into how you want to build your characters. It's a little more complex than I'm making it sound, but trust me, there is some depth here. Oh yeah, there's also a timer in battles. This doesn't always play a big factor, but when it does, it can add some extra strategy. When it comes to the story, you play as a girl with amnesia by the name of Myra. I know that sounds cliche, but it takes some interesting turns later and gets heavier and deeper than you'd probably think. I won't spoil it, but the characters in the story are quite strong. They do leave an impact on you. Earlier, I called Vanguard Bandits the biggest hidden gem on this list, and, well, that was kind of a lie. Energy Breaker is at least tied for the same. Hardly anyone knows about it, and that should change. If you're a fan of old school 16-bit RPGs and haven't played this one yet, this is a must-play. You've gotta check it out. Alright, and that about wraps up this video. Thanks for watching everyone, we hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please either consider hitting that like button or subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. What are some lesser known tactical RPGs you guys think would be fitting for a list like this? Let us know in the comments. Maybe if the interest is there, we'll do a part 2. By the way, to our current subs, I know not a lot of you guys got the notification of our Super Mario RPG video recently, so in case you didn't know, we also just released a 2-hour banger over Star Ocean 2. It's our longest video ever, but compared to our other retrospectives, it's underperforming by quite a bit. It's got like less than 1/10 of the views in our video by the first Star Ocean, despite it being a way more popular and loved game. Not to mention, I just think the video itself is leagues ahead in quality. The algorithm just out here slaying us recently, but hopefully it turns around soon. As always, just want to give a huge thank you to our Patreon supporters, and of course an extra special shout out to our top patrons, Derek Drost, Jesse Spencer, Jump Rock, and Sayano. All your support and generosity is very much appreciated. Other than that, thanks again for watching everyone, and hope you have an awesome day. This is Corbin from Gaming Productions. Until next time.